Future Quest Presents is an anthology title from DC Comics and is the successor to its original Future Quest 12-issue maxi series that saw the revival and team-up of Hanna-Barbera's 1960s action heroes. This included the likes of Johnny Quest, Space Ghost, Birdman, and the Herculoids, among others. Having concluded that original storyline, the book was relaunched as an anthology to provide more in-depth spotlight on the individual characters from that series. If you're not familiar with Future Quest, I highly recommend checking that one out as well. The format for Future Quest Presents involves shorter, usually 3-part stories, starring some of Hanna-Barbera's greatest action and superheroes. The first 3-issue arc features Space Ghost and is written by Jeff Parker with art by Ariel Olivetti. The story involves Space Ghost as the sole survivor of the once mighty Space Force and his quest to acquire the rare element Zeo, which is the raw material for construction of his famous power bands. Discovering an untapped source deep beneath the planet Amzot, home of the Herculoids, Space Ghost sets out along with his teenage protégés Jan and Jace and their space monkey Blip to retrieve the ore. On Amzot, they rendezvous with the Herculoids and learn of the great dangers associated with the location of the mine, including local wildlife and radioactive fallout. They gain assistance from Igu the rock ape, who accompanies them on their journey underground. Once deep beneath the planet's surface, they encounter the remnants of the final mining expedition, now horribly disfigured and mutated by radiation, led by Metalis, who has been planning to exact revenge on the Space Force for leaving them behind years ago. This is a simple yet thoughtful story. It's accessible to anyone, even if you aren't familiar with Space Ghost or haven't read Future Quest. This story feels like a true Space Ghost adventure, almost like a long-lost episode of the original cartoon. Jeff Parker obviously has a strong affinity for the Hanna-Barbera superheroes, and I absolutely love his take on them. His depiction of Space Ghost as the last member of the Space Force, haunted by survivor's guilt and the memories of his fallen friends as he tries to rebuild the Force, gives the character a much-needed extra weight. Parker also treats us to the origin of Jan and Jace, and writes them as competent and useful, although still prone to getting captured and in trouble. Even Blip is put to good use and earns his keep, as he always does in the cartoon. An extra added touch was incorporating the Herculoids into the story, but just enough to facilitate the plot. As well, we are introduced to Metalis, who is reborn as a tragic villain, although one fueled by hatred and a thirst for revenge. It's an interesting twist to see what he looks like under the helmet for the first time, and it makes him an even more menacing presence than ever. His backstory is nicely tied to the Omicron incident from Future Quest, and again, his inclusion makes the search for Element Zeo and the construction of more power bands all come full circle. Metalis was a good choice for the villain, even though it would have been easier to go with a more recognizable antagonist such as Zorak or Brak. It may come as no surprise that given my love for these characters, Future Quest Presents is my favorite ongoing comic book right now. I love that DC is giving spotlight to these characters whose original adventures I remember so fondly. And it's completely refreshing to have Space Ghost, and indeed all of these characters, presented in a serious context after years of being mocked and spoofed on Adult Swim. I highly recommend this first 3-issue storyline from Future Quest Presents, whether you're a fan of the Hanna-Barbera superheroes or not. It's great for readers of all ages and a great introductory book to examine and learn about these classic characters.